When Ryan's when it's time to begin, it's on the Rewind to Raw with John Pollock and Wai Ting. The 18 that makes sense of these things we see in the ring every week on TV. It's Rewind to Raw for Monday night. Download it Tuesday morning from the Post Wrestling site. It's Rewind to Raw for Monday night on USA Now on the John and Wai Take the Mic.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Rewind to Raw, the show where we rewind to the beginning of Raw and we recap Raw. Hello, Wai.
Yeah, that's right. That's what we do. We rewind it. Yeah, mentally.
Were there any points during this show where you said to yourself, man, I wish I could just rewind and watch all of this over again?
No. Nope. I can't say so. I can't say I rarely feel that way during a 3-hour show that I've been watching for the past 8 years every Monday. Fast forwarding, yeah. So maybe that's a future show that we could do. Fast forward to Raw.
2x Raw would be my preferred speed to watch this in. It would be great.
I think that's really the future. Honestly, if that's like one of the upgrade options of the WWE network, sign me right up.
$50 a month, easy. Take my money.
Yeah,
I get 2x Raw every Monday night, and I can finish it in a fraction of the time. How was your weekend, Wai? How was your? How did you celebrate 4th of July?
4th of July. Didn't really celebrate. I'm Canadian.
There were some fireworks going on in my area on the 4th of July, not the 1st.
Yeah. I mean, it is a weekend, so maybe that's why.
Yes, just save up and blow stuff up on the weekend. Well, that sounds wonderful. Did you get up to anything on your Monday?
Yeah, we had a chat with Emily Pratt.
That is right. That's up on the site. I thought a really interesting interview with Emily, getting a lot of her thoughts about everything. And yeah, that's up on the site now. So if you want to go check that out, a Monday interview to kick off what is going to be a very busy week on the site. There's a lot coming up over the next week.
And we'll probably lay it all out a little bit later on.
We will. Let's start off with the news, and then we will shift focus to the site and some of the shows that we have coming up. And we're going to start off with some comments made by Kelly Klein, formerly of Ring of Honor. And this was posted on Monday afternoon. And Kelly Klein had written, when J-Rock harassed a female member of the ROH locker room, he was told to leave and was not welcome back. Multiple women brought complaints and evidence of sexual misconduct and harassment by Jay Lethal. ROH ignored, covered it up. They only take action when convenient. They are hoping to use another, in quotations, investigation to wait everyone out until we, in quotations, forget. Thank you, Ring of Honor, for all of the truly wonderful things you do and have done. Now, please address the bad behavior. Do better. Right now, you continue to choose not to. It's hard when your faves get called out. Imagine what it's like to be targeted, harassed by that person, and not protected because he or she is a favorite. People can be talented, friend to many, good for the community, and also take advantage of and abuse others, not mutually exclusive. In fact, qualities that make it hard to accept that a favorite could do something horrible are the things they use to gain access to victims and escape accountability. They don't usually wear a sign or broadcast their bad intentions. Now, both people here that she named responded to this. J-Rock, first of all, who had worked for Ring of Honor in the past, said, anybody who knows me knows who and what I am. I've made plenty of mistakes, never, ever maliciously. Lessons were learned professionally and personally. I would never upset or hurt anyone intentionally and work every single day to be better than yesterday. And that continues. Easy for cyber bullies to use their clout with half-truths and agendas. One person's harass is someone else's misunderstanding. But then again, when you're a bad human being yourself, you always assume the worst of anybody first. I made a bunch of mistakes there, but not that. And goes on to say, and in case that wasn't direct enough, I did not harass anyone. I did not even have an inappropriate conversation, period. Believe what you will from there. And then Jay Lethal, this was just about an hour ago, he put up a lengthier statement here talking about the speaking out movement and specifically to what was alleged of him, he stated, "I have never and would never sexually harass, sexually assault, rape, or force myself on anyone. I would never use my status to deny anyone opportunities. Even now, it pains me to know that defending myself might somehow tarnish an important movement and cast doubt on real troubling experiences." So we have a case of, more allegations being made and responses from two people named. My question to you, Wai, is more just from the overall sense. If you feel that new allegations are going to continue to receive the same attention that we saw of weeks past, is there going to be the same level of intensity that we saw and focus on these stories versus others that are going to be resigned to the fact that it is two sides of the story and that's kind of it? Both sides have presented their case and not really knowing what the next step is for so many of these cases where there are situations like this.
As far as, intensity of allegations coming out, I mean, I don't know if we'll see something that'll match. I think, how many we heard in that short amount of time, just a little over like a week ago. But I think they will keep coming up because I think people are more comfortable now, hopefully, to, talk about these things that I think have seemingly lingered for a lot of people for a long, long time. As far as like what a company can do about it, I feel like everything that's occurred right now has at least created maybe the beginnings of a system within each individual company to, be forced to create some sort of protocol and some sort of investigative team to think, hopefully get to the bottom of exactly what is going on. It's creating an environment that allows people to at least challenge what existed before. And man, it's like, will the truth ever come out with a lot of these things? I mean, so many of them are really so difficult.
Probably not, Wai. There's probably a lot of these cases where it's not going to end with a this side or that side kind of conclusion to any of it. There's going to be many where it's two sides of the story. And in this case, it's, accusations being made. And, in J-Rock's case, it's saying like it was not the scenario that was laid out. It was a misunderstanding. And in Jay Lethal's case, like adamantly denying it. Like it is completely a falsehood to be accusing him of such. So, I mean, I think that's the complicated nature that I think probably a lot of fans have of how do you view these people? Like there is not kind of an arbiter to just come in and make some ruling. And I think at times we lean on these promotions to at least somewhat serve as that. Do you feel that by and large, like I feel these companies, they do have to be very transparent in actions that they are going to take in terms of a system, in terms of a protocol that performers can go through and address these. And I understand the sensitivities that you don't want to paintbrush anybody if you don't have sufficient evidence. But at the same time, I think just as a company as a whole, you do need to be coming forward with, okay, we understand these stories. We are taking all of them seriously. And this is what, as our company, we are going to put in place, whether it is some kind of third party or at least some kind of system in place where they are welcoming people to come and confidently and confidentially disclose stories like this and complaints.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think any modern company anywhere in 2020 should have something like that in place, especially if you're a professional wrestling company right now with any sort of like notoriety. It's I think especially important to be able to have your employees come out for any really sort of like human resources issue, something to be able to get the proper attention. I think is important. And how many of these cases that have been brought up will we actually see like the truth of? I really don't know. But I do feel like the net effect of everything going on is a deterrent for future instances of things like, what people have been alleging will occur. And then really that's it. I hope we get the truth of a lot of what's been laid out there. But at the very least, I really feel like, everything that's been said, everything that's been brought out there has really made a difference for like how people might conduct themselves in the future.
Like you certainly look that for people that are guilty, and like you want the offenders to be as far removed from this industry as possible. But to me, the longer term effect is that you want to have a wrestling culture where, as you said, that people are not going to turn a blind eye to this. If there are, stories going around, it's not going to be just brushed aside, and people are going to be in certain positions where they feel they are untouchable, that there is going to be the talent taking it upon themselves to clean up their locker rooms, that they do not want that kind of actions spreading around, and that to be a reputation that the entire industry gets painted with. And that's somewhat I would say, especially for the European scene, that it's somewhat been painted as coming out of all of this. Like that is a specific part of the wrestling industry that needs like a wholesale cleanup. And it's not exclusively there. There are certainly probably many other issues throughout any scene that you look at in wrestling. And I think that you just hope that long term there is going to be a lot more of a focus on this, and not so much of a just letting these whispers continue and no action taken.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely. Yeah. Like we kind of got into this with Emily Pratt, but coronavirus has really kind of made things interesting, where a lot of these companies really aren't operating shows yet right now anyway. But the moment that they are forced to, how big will this story continue to be at that point, and how much pressure will it be on them from the audience to make sure that everything's clean and that they, ensure that it's a safe working environment for all those people involved.
That's what it will come down to, is like a certain amount of pressure to push promoters and, people connected to, put those kinds of measures in place. And I do question that how many fans just, they don't want to think about this stuff going on in this industry that they enjoy following, that they don't want to think about the ugly underbelly to it. They just want to enjoy the wrestling. And are they going to dismiss a lot of what's happened over this last period of time? Like, this is kind of the period we're in now, where it's, okay, you have digested all of this information, and now it's kind of the action phase. What are the next steps going to be after people have seen all these stories come out? That's where I'm at right now, of where the next steps are, so that we're not looking 9 months from now and this was a horrifying period, but the industry kind of just went right back to the same way it had operated prior, and we don't see those kinds of changes.
Yeah. I mean, what do you think is the key to ensuring that it's still, important for people to talk about?
I think I certainly feel that there is much more confidence in speaking openly, that the fear of speaking out has lessened because of just the sheer volume in numbers over the past few weeks. I do believe that by and large, a lot of performers, I think, are going to take a lot of this stuff more seriously, and I think the locker room leaders will really step up once we get shows that are back regularly, especially on the independent level. Beyond that, I think that there is going to be a reliance, though, on the industry having to police itself. And I don't know how many people are comfortable with that, given what's happened up till this point. But we're talking about, especially at the independent level, these are not companies that have all these resources to implement like an HR department to hire people specifically for this function. And that's to me, the ideal scenario is that there's at least some kind of third party involvement, whether it is just an outlet that all of these independent promoters can go through. But it's a complex system to try and see how do you oversee an industry that is spread out across the world. These are performers that are independent contractors. It gets more difficult once you try and narrow in and specify, specific measures in place. And I hope that those are the kinds of ideas and thoughts that get presented now, that we have this time to look at this industry before all of these independents come back. What kind of industry are they coming back to?
Well, I think that's a really interesting conversation to potentially have with like people who run indies. and you know how they might be thinking about it, because like you said, it's like it's not realistic, I would say, for a lot of these smaller companies to like hire a whole board or any sort of people just to specifically oversee something like this. It's going to be something that has to be like policed within the culture itself. Mm-hmm. And you know, I'm really curious to know what some of the indie promoters that are out there, how they like, where a lot of these problems are really like springing up from, how they intend on fostering that community.
So this is obviously a subject that, you know, we'll continue to look at and cover, because it's, to me, it's only in its infancy in terms of you know, what needs to be done ultimately. Late on Monday, Ryan Satin at Pro Wrestling Sheet had a new story out that after the tapings last week, where they went through another set of COVID-19 tests, there were more positives. And Ryan Satin is reporting that, from what we've been told, there have been at least 30 people in total at the PC who have tested positive for the virus over the past 3 weeks. This includes behind-the-scenes workers and in-ring talent. He goes on to say, our sources also note that the company has administered nearly 1,500 tests since they began testing for COVID at the end of June. That is a staggering number of tests that they have conducted in a very short amount of time. But also, that is a lot of positives, where he is pegging it at least 30 people.
I mean, it seems to match the numbers I've heard kind of swirling around. It's incredibly alarming. I mean, but the shows are still continuing, and I imagine the shows will continue even if we get more after this. It's like, I don't see them stopping, really, as long as they can go.
Yeah, and in some cases, there are people that are absolutely vital to producing this 3-hour show, because seriously, if you pluck out Ric Flair from tonight's show, Raw is a completely different episode, I think.
You know, at some point, it's like, it's really, you can't really, there's so much you can say. Like, I'm sure Ric Flair himself is well aware of all the concerns people have around him. Yet for some reason, you know, he still chooses to be in those backstage segments.
We will get more into who was on Raw, who was not on Raw, but someone who was Rey Mysterio. And Dave Meltzer had a very interesting report that Rey Mysterio is currently working without a WWE contract. We had spoken about this previously when they did the angle with Seth Rollins, that, you know, his deal was coming due, and it was going to be a very interesting negotiation process, because 6 months ago, he would probably stand to have cashed in huge in what could have been, and maybe, his final wrestling contract. He's 45 years old now, but his contract, unfortunately, the timing was really bad for him, because WWE is in a much different position now when it comes to what they're offering. And he is, you know, as of last word, working without this contract, and now is set up for the horror show at Extreme Rules, the pay-per-view. And
what, they changed the order?
Which?
So I thought it was Extreme Rules, the horror show.
Now it is the horror show at Extreme Rules.
Oh, okay. That changes everything.
And boy, did we have some hits and misses when it came to the talent having to try to get this mouthful out on Monday. But first of all, your thoughts on Rey, A, working without a contract, and B, what are his options right now?
Oh man, Rey Mysterio. Well, him working without a contract, I do find it fascinating, because he's in such a high profile program right now on Raw, and, you know, scheduled to pretty much appear on every episode leading up until the pay-per-view, and
which are taped
now. Sure. But it's just seems like it's a case of a contract running out at a time that maybe they would have expected to have signed a new deal with Rey by now, but they haven't. And it just feels like a bit of a public game of kind of like hardball between the two. And I would say the major, you know, chess pieces that are on the board for everybody is, aside from Rey Mysterio's, you know, I guess the other competition that are offering Rey Mysterio potentially contracts, of which I would say pretty much anybody, but primarily the ones with the most money, and that would be AEW. I imagine like New Japan would love to have him back, but for an amount that I think he would probably ask for, I'm kind of doubtful about that. To me, like the only real competitor might be AEW at this moment. But the big thing that I'm sure is on Ray's mind is what the future might be for his son, Dominic, and what AEW may be able to offer him versus potentially burning a bridge with the WWE, where you're already your son is already being featured in the main program right now with Seth Rollins. So all these things I'm sure are kind of weighing on him. And ultimately, I do see Rey just signing back with the WWE. Probably, it's just a matter of like how much money right now. He's probably not getting what he wants. And I mean, who knows? But I do see him sticking with the WWE.
Yeah, Dominic to me is the interesting piece in all of this because you remove Dominic from the picture. I think that AEW is incredibly attractive as an offer. Based on their moves that we've seen over the past month, it doesn't seem like AEW is hesitating to sign people, and I think they would bend over backwards to get Rey Mysterio. That would be I'm not going to say game changer, but he'd be a very big pickup for them just with what he would bring to the show every Wednesday, the opponents he would have, and he would be treated like a legend in that company. So I could see that being extremely attractive to him. I think the most likely outcome would be kind of the idea that we threw out earlier when we talked about this would be, I think it'd be a mistake to sign a long-term deal with WWE. But I think your meeting halfway would be to sign a 1-year contract or something short-term. And then when things get back to normal, they can sit down and then Rey talks about what the final year or two of his career is going to be like. He's 45 though, so time is not on his side. But he's working at an incredible level, so it's not to suggest that he's on his last legs either. Perhaps this guy is going to get another 3 years out of wrestling. It's not out of the realm of possibility, but I would see that being the compromise is sign a short-term deal and then he becomes a very in-demand free agent a year from now.
These leverage points are incredibly important, especially when you're trying to go up against the WWE in negotiations. And, for Rey Mysterio to have his contract run out at this point, even during coronavirus, I mean, I imagine it gives him, I would say probably a great deal of, I don't know, probably comfort or not necessarily comfort, but like power in being able to determine how he might get treated in a storyline, how his son might get treated in a storyline. Now, like, it's certainly up in his advantage to maintain that position of power for as long as he can. Because who's to say if he signs a 5-year contract that they will continue to book him well, that they will continue to book his son well, and not just treat him like they treated him for the better part of like the year and a half that he had. It's only like it feels like in recent months that they're like really taking him seriously. And, same with the son, like who, Dominic would not be receiving a push right now if Rey Mysterio was not attached to the deal, of course. And will that continue if, Rey was in this locked up?
Yeah, all great questions. It's very interesting and it's very unlike WWE to be having someone in such a high profile role without a contract at a time when, I mean, it's incredible trust that they must have in Rey. And I would say that I would not expect Rey to be doing anything radical during this time period. But I mean, this is WWE that has, they look at the contracts they were thrown out a year ago just for, the thought of an undercard performer going over to AEW. And here you're talking about Rey Mysterio, who, man, if AEW is going to make like a big purchase, that would be one of the guys that you would justify throwing a lot of money at.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, from WWE's perspective and really from Rey's perspective, if there's any argument that they can't afford these contracts right now, I think, you can easily call bullshit on that when you consider that this is going to be their most profitable year ever. So I'm sure Rey knows that. It's more so WWE not wanting to upset their salary structure. But I mean, if you're Rey Mysterio, who gives a shit about that, right?
WWE and UFC say, "Hey, we're in a pandemic here, man. Our hands are tied." I mean, it's pretty rich. It's pretty rich, literally. So anyway, that is the saga involving Rey Mysterio. Jorge Masvidal has passed his first COVID-19 test, where he had to go to Las Vegas to pass that test, and was set to go to Abu Dhabi today. And he is inserted into the main event of UFC 251 this Saturday, replacing Gilbert Burns, who we talked about on Friday, had tested positive for the virus. So it will now be a much bigger main event with Kamaru Usman against Jorge Masvidal. This fight came together on Saturday, and as of Saturday, he weighed 192 pounds, so he's got to cut 22 pounds this week on top of flying to Abu Dhabi, and there's quarantines in there as well. So it's not like a traditional fight week where, 22 pounds is not out of the realm of what a fighter has to cut, but it's on top of everything else.
It's out of camp though, like with
no camp
prep.
Yeah, I mean, he's a 3-1 underdog, and I don't think that's outrageous. That said, I don't think this is a fight you can discount him in either, but he's going against a very, very tough opponent in Kamaru Usman, who is an awful style fight for most of the welterweights.
Well, I will say, at this point, like being as much of an outsider to the whole MMA UFC scene as I am, like my interest as a result of all these changes in this entire story has definitely perked up. I mean, stories make fights, styles make fights, but I mean, stories also make fights. And to have like the whole scenario played out here with like the hot button topic of the year in COVID-19 playing such a big role in it. And really the whole crazy idea of like flying fighters out to an island, like it's definitely making this entire fight and this entire card a bit more in the mainstream consciousness. So, I mean, either way, I predict the show will probably do really well.
I think it's going to do tremendously well. I think this is going to be a really, really big fight card on Saturday. So yeah, there's 3 championship fights. And later on, before the end of the show, Phil Chertok is going to stop by, and he's going to tee up what we have planned for our UFC 251 coverage coming up later this week and on Saturday night. So stay tuned for that. I also want to make a quick correction from Friday. After when we were doing Rewind to SmackDown and we were talking about the Elijah McClain story, the 3 officers that were fired, they were not the officers that stopped Elijah McClain. They were 3 officers that went to the site of where there was actually I think a memorial set up for him, and these were 3 separate officers that took a photo reenacting the choke. And they were fired. Still a horrible story, but 3 separate officers. So I just want to make that correction from Friday. Are you ready, Wai, to look at this week's schedule on the site? We won't go through everything because there's quite a bit here, but some of the highlights.
Yes.
So on Tuesday night, you and I are reviewing an episode of Lonesome Dove from December of 1995. This was selected from our good pal, Jay Hunter from OSW. And this features Bret Hart as Luther Root. I have watched this episode. I don't know what this podcast will sound like on Tuesday night. I don't know what we're going to talk about. I'm going to try and make sense of this with you. I'm going to guess that you, like me, have never watched an episode of Lonesome Dove in your life prior to this week.
Never, ever. I haven't seen the miniseries. I haven't seen, I guess if there's a film, I've never Lonesome. I've never dove into the Lonesome.
That's pretty good. I have never gone into a show where I know so little about the subject matter that I'm going to be talking about, but somehow you and I will navigate through this review. This might be our worst Rewind Away ever, and maybe that's the appeal right off the bat.
Well, do join us. I mean, Lonesome Dove fans, please, love to hear from you if you exist out there. All I know about this thing is that Bret did this, what is it, after the SummerSlam? Is that right? He took some time off?
Yeah, I mean, this was in 95. Yeah, so he had been trying to break into acting at the time.
Bret's a cowboy. Really, that's all you need to know. Like we're in this to watch Bret Hart act. Okay, that's all we really care about.
With an accent.
That's right. Yes.
So that will be dropping on Tuesday.
I'll be putting my cowboy hat back on to talk about Cowboy Bret Hart.
Cowboy Wai Ting returns to his Luther roots on Tuesday night. Also on the Up Next feed on Tuesday, Braden Harrington and Nate Milton are reviewing Hamilton. I got a text from Braden last week that said, "Hey, for your update next week, me and Nate are reviewing Hamilton." I didn't know what this meant. I have heard of Hamilton. I know about the musical
You thought
Hamilton.
it was the city?
No, I knew. I was just like, how are they reviewing Hamilton? Because all I know of this is as the musical, and I know for damn sure Hamilton is not a Broadway play that you're able to go watch right now. However,
now it is.
It's now on Disney Plus, so that is where these two are watching it, and we'll be reviewing this on the Up Next feed. And I hate musicals, but maybe I'm going to listen to this.
I mean, I definitely want to watch Hamilton. I mean, it was all the rage on the internet this week. But after I watch it, I will definitely listen to their review.
Wednesday, we've got our reviews of Fyter Fest and Great American Bash Week 2. That will be up on Wednesday night. Thursday, we've got a UFC 251 preview show, as well as the British Wrestling Experience. They will be continuing to talk about the Speaking Out movement and many other subjects to come out of that. We're live on Friday night with SmackDown at 10:15 Eastern Time for all patrons. Saturday night, it's our UFC post show. And Sunday, for patrons, we will be doing a post show after New Japan's Dominion card, and Wai and I have enlisted the help of Mr. New Japan Cup at postwrestling.com, Mike Murray, who will be joining us Sunday night. We'll go through some of the highlights of Saturday and the big Master Wato versus Doki match, which is the unofficial main event, and then a thorough review of Sunday's Dominion card, featuring 3 title fights as of now.
Yeah, wow. So that and the UFC, 3 title fights.
3 title fights. That's the way to go. And I hope that Jorge Masvidal doesn't have to step in for Shingo Takagi.
I would love to watch that, actually. Worked or shoot. I think that would be fun. Yes, I look forward to chatting with Mike about the New Japan Cup as well as Dominion. The first New Japan shows with a partial crowd.
Yes. So that will be very interesting to watch how New Japan returns to having fans this coming weekend. So all of the shows, you can see the lineup at postwrestling.com. As we mentioned, the Emily Pratt interview is already up. And as well, worth your time to go check out. Andrew Thompson did an excellent report over the weekend detailing Saif Al-Sabah's exit from MLW. And there's a lot to this story involving the promotion, the Team Vision Dojo. And I just thought Andrew did a really very thorough, fantastic reporting job on this story over the weekend. So take some time to go read his report from this past weekend. Raw from the Performance Center, yet again. We start things off, with Drew McIntyre coming out. And they are immediately hitting us over the head. It is the horror show at Extreme Rules.
Now, what would facilitate a change like that?
Like what? Who sits down and says, "You know what? All our marketing for this is wrong. We've got to pronounce it, and this is the order of words. It's no longer Extreme Rules, the horror show. This pay-per-view is missing the word at." We need the horror show at Extreme Rules, because without it, people are going to say Extreme Rules, the horror show. They're not going to know where the horror show is. The horror show is at Extreme Rules.
I've heard theories that, the reason why they went so hard in the whole greatest match ever thing was some reason to do with SEO. So like if people typed in greatest match ever, greatest wrestling match ever, they would find Edge and Orton.
Please tell me Vince McMahon is getting taught what SEO is in 2020. I would love to know what those meetings go like.
But I don't see how that would really apply for something like this. I don't know. I can't begin to explain.
I can't. I can't. But that is the naming convention for this pay-per-view coming up in a few weeks. I'm now looking forward to what they call, like, what's SummerSlam going to be. I mean, it's everything's got to have like a sub theme to it.
Yeah, clearly.
So Drew McIntyre is out, and all he wants to know is the stipulation that he has allowed Dolph to choose. He suggests matches such as a match at the edge of a cliff, one overlooking a volcano, with sharks and laser beams, which to me are all ideas that are fair game at this point that would not stun me for any of these cinematic matches.
I could see a laser shark match at some point.
Ziggler comes out and says the stipulation is a secret. He won't reveal it before the show. Dolph says it was very dumb of Drew to give him this option. I would say it's pretty dumb to have a stipulation that you're not going to announce until you've bought the show.
Yeah.
Drew tells him, I am the WWE freaking champion. And then Dolph brings up what happened between 2014 and 2017? It's a blank page. What an FU to the company they just bought.
Yeah.
An impact, poor impact. Drew says, I'm proud of my road back to WWE. He goes over beating Brock Lesnar and Big Show at WrestleMania. Dolph says, you left people behind. You stabbed them in the back, and I brought out one of them. And out walks Heath Slater with his free agent t-shirt. And Tom Phillips has seen a ghost and just says, I thought Heath Slater was fired. Slater gets into the ring, and he proceeds to tell Drew that I've known you for over a decade. I misspelled Drew here, so I'm just going to imagine that Dr. Dre is getting the riot act read to him by Heath Slater. He says that, Drew, when you were fired, I was the first one to call you, and I called you every single day. And when I was at home at WrestleMania, I was with my kids watching WrestleMania. I cried. I cried when you won. It was the first time my kids saw me cry. So when I got fired, where was my phone call? You were my brother. Where were you when I needed you? And you and I haven't spoken since the bump. The one show I was allowed to appear on with you. And I didn't have 22 kids, but I have 2 girls, and I'm fighting for them. I was there for you. You weren't there for me. And you told me on the bump that you would petition to have a match with me. Well, now I'm unemployed, and I'm here to take that opportunity, and I want to face you. And Drew doesn't want to fight him, so he shoves him. Then he slaps Drew, and Drew agrees to the match. This was the best promo of Heath Slater's career without any second place finish. What did you think about this opening to Raw?
I thought it was fantastic. I thought it was a great surprise. And, work shoot is often at this point really overdone, but this felt absolutely perfect. And Heath Slater cut this promo as if it was his last. And he just went out there not playing any sort of character other than his real life persona as a guy who just lost his job. And, who knows at this point if how many of these guys are going to be hired back, what they've said to these guys in private, I don't know. But the guy came out here with a fantastic story, much in the same way Drake Maverick was able to use all that and turn it into, a pretty interesting storyline. You got the best segment of Heath Slater's life here.
So they go to break, and I'm just like, that was an awesome setup. It's like, are they going to tease this all show long? What are they going to do? Dude, we came back from break. The match is starting immediately. They're in their street clothes. Heath goes to take his shirt off and is hit with the Claymore and pinned in 24 seconds. I could not believe this. I could not fathom that they did such a great job building a 24-second squash.
This didn't really surprise me that much. I mean, I'd never for a second thought they would have headlined the show with somebody who, is about to leave. Well, is technically still employed, but you know, very much on like in somebody on the level of Heath Slater. I didn't really see this. It kind of just played out the way I mean, I did expect it a bit to be a bit more of a fight, but ultimately this was Drew McIntyre, who they view as such a high level, and the guy who, you know, like makes like their comedy guy. So, you know, despite
they did a better job. They did a better job building up Heath Slater than they've done in weeks with Dolph Ziggler. I was way more interested in this than I've ever been in Drew and Dolph Ziggler.
Not because you believe Heath Slater's story. Like he's speaking from, you know, a position of reality. Dolph has really no story, no real anything. So, I mean, that was a major difference. But overall, I the promo I thought was fantastic, and the idea of bringing Heath Slater back just for a segment like this, it was really different. It felt real, and if it was a goodbye performance from Heath Slater, like, I mean, he went out, you know, with his best shot.
I'm just surprised they went to this extent with him. Like, for him, it was great that he got this promo, because if it was just to come in and lose to a guy in 24 seconds, I don't know why he would even, you know, be up for that. But the promo, you know, this
for the promo.
The promo was, you know, key, and that, I mean, it's rare that they allow a guy just to go out and have a promo like that.
And also to promote the bump. I mean, this was the best advertisement I saw for the bump. I thought for sure they were going to play the clip before the match, because I guarantee you many people did not see that segment. And I think, like, how many people even know what the bump is? That is just your raw viewer. Oh yeah. I don't think they ever mention it too much. But you know, I don't know how much of this was even honestly planned, and how much of it really came from somebody like Heath Slater's mind. It felt that genuine, and it was great. I mean, if only all wrestling promos could sound like this, like, you know, just built off of whatever reality is going on in their lives, there really is so much more better story to be told. But you know, they
did it not paint Drew, did it not paint Drew in a bit of a negative light? Like, that's an asshole thing to him. He hasn't called him in this whole time.
Oh yeah, Drew never really like redeemed himself, I would say, after this. Like, not only did he basically agree pretty much, he had no comeback for like the reasons why he never called his friend back after he was let go. He just, you know, gave him a shot and then took him out in 24 seconds while never breaking eye contact with his real opponent. So yeah, he is a bit of a shitty friend.
Like, maybe if he just said, like, I had a new phone and I didn't have your new number, or I don't have a computer anymore. I mean, there's no way out of that for Drew. I mean, I thought it painted like Heath Slater was like the total sympathetic babyface, and I don't know if that was the intention, given how strong they have been paranoid to do anything that would compromise Drew McIntyre. Like, they've gone to an insane degree to protect him, and they really painted him as a dick here.
Well, this would be one that would have been really interesting to see in front of a crowd, because I think for sure Slater would have received huge applause. I think he would have anyway, but like, especially in a scenario like this, Slater would have received huge ovations, and whether or not that would have meant Drew would have received boos in return would have been really interesting to see. He
would have gotten just the pop of, you know, walking out and it's someone that's not on the, or that they know the story of. I do worry that in front of an audience, it would have been drowned out by the "he's got kids" chant and might have taken away from the seriousness, because I think the silence actually helped, because Heath was great in this segment. I thought, you know, a career best promo by leaps and bounds.
Sometimes, like, when guys have, like, you know, performances like this, I mean, we saw almost with Drake Maverick, even in the form of his like home shot video on the day that he was let go. It really lets them like have a second look at them and really lets them reconsider. So Heath Slater, to me, wouldn't really be surprising if he was brought back in.
Very possible, especially after a performance like that. So afterwards, Drew tells Ziggler he's going to kick his ass at the pay-per-view. Ziggler then slaps Slater around, and this allows Drew to redeem himself by saving Slater. And as Ziggler takes off, Drew pulls up Slater. Slater is in tears, and the two men hug. And Slater was very forgiving here.
That was the redemption. He like came in and saved him.
You can pick me up, but you can't pick a phone up.
Yes.
So that was it. I was like, wow, I have never seen a 24-second match built up better than that. I think they could have gotten a lot more out of this, but maybe they did not anticipate getting the level of performance they did from Slater.
I think in their minds too, it's like, why would we give a guy who's about to leave, a lengthy match with our champion?
Why give him a lengthy promo then? Like, that to me was what, makes this guy a really, a bit of a commodity coming out of this.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Like, he could have just come out with Ziggler acting like a cocky asshole and gotten beat like MVP's gotten a million times. And it could have, instead, like, they really gave this guy a spotlight and he completely delivered. So I thought this was great for Slater, even with the loss. Schreiber is backstage with Bayley and Banks saying how Raw's gotten off to an emotional start and they're going to go out and talk to the world rather than with Sarah Schreiber, not realizing where this backstage interview is being sent to. Asuka just laughs at the suggestion by Schreiber that she is all alone against Banks and Bayley tonight. So Bayley and Banks are in the ring. They're cutting a promo, and there was two painfully obvious edits here as Bayley had to say the new branding of the pay-per-view, and it was one of those just clunky edits to make it sound normal. And then Sasha said something about Asuka not being Raw Women's Champion after Extreme Rules, and they had to edit the hell out of that as well. So it just seemed like they were tripping over their words or something here. Asuka comes out to run them down. Bayley says that Sasha is ready to face anyone that Asuka has. What a stupid offer that she made. And out walks Kairi Sane to set up Sasha Banks and Kairi Sane.
Yeah, the first time we've seen Kairi since the Nia Jax injury.
And they proceeded to have a 2-segment match. Sane was attacking her with a barrage of strikes, and then Banks takes over, and Sane tosses Banks to the floor, hits a sliding drop kick to both Bayley and Banks. They go through the break. Banks then hits the knees off the turnbuckle. She tries again and misses. Sane hit this flying forearm off the top, and then continues with a spear. They're trading near falls, and then Banks misses the Meteora. Sane rolls almost like she's going for a half crab, but instead she crosses the legs, and at 13 minutes and 23 seconds of TV time, Bayley runs in for the DQ, attacking Kairi Sane.
I was definitely confused why they didn't just have Banks win, considering, she's going for the title and Kairi really is doing nothing right now. I think it made a little bit more sense with the tag title match announcement a little bit later on. Despite the lack of finish, I definitely enjoyed the match. To me, this is one of those matches where I really am disappointed that we didn't have a better atmosphere with a full crowd for something like this. At one time, really, this could have been, and really still is, a dream match, between two of the top female wrestlers in the entire world. With rumors that Kairi might be done coming up, I'm glad we at least got it when we did. And I really am glad that we got to see Kairi as a babyface come back here. Ever since Asuka won the belt, that was kind of her unofficial turn. And so we saw Kairi really, I think, do the thing that she does best as a wrestler. And that's, those fiery babyface comebacks where she's just so good at it. It's really a shame that they never really used her to this full potential while she's been on Raw.
After the match, there was a 2-on-1 attack on Asuka until Sane hit both Bayley and Banks with the insane elbow, and then they would be figured into the main event, which they had advertised ahead of time with Asuka and Bayley. And while we're talking about, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, it's crazy because Sasha in the course of 3 weeks has now faced Theo, has faced Kairi, and is about to face Asuka. Mm-hmm. So she's really honestly on fire right now, and having the best opponents to face to boot.
Since we were talking about Sane coming back, just to look at the attendance on this week's Raw. So these were the tapings that were done on Friday. So this week we saw Kevin Owens back, Randy Orton was back, and Kairi was back. But ones who we did not see this week, the Street Profits were off. Natalya was not on tonight. Austin Theory was off. No Shelton Benjamin, no Nia Jax, no Liv Morgan, and no Shayna Baszler, but she was on these tapings on Friday.
She was on the main event tapings.
Well, she was there Friday, yeah. So ones who were the
event, right?
She did do a match for main event. Yes.
Oh God, so sad.
Lana and Umberto were on last week's show, but not there this week. So not sure what any of these mean, but that's yeah.
Could mean that they're just not booked. Could mean something else. Yeah, we don't know.
Yeah, but the notable ones that weren't there for the last set, but were back, included Owens and Orton. So those are two big ones that were back. We continue on, and Aleister Black is backstage. For the first 30 seconds of this beatdown, I thought they were attacking Rey, but it was Aleister Black with a Rey Mysterio mask on.
That was a little confusing. It looked like a jacked, tall Rey Mysterio.
Yeah, I was like, when did he get all these tattoos here? Like, I know Rey's got ink, but it didn't seem to this degree. And then as they zoomed in closer, oh, they put a mask on this guy. So yes, Aleister was left in the back, and Rollins and Murphy came out after their attack. They're plugging The Miz. The Miz is on the cover of TV Guide, which I'm stunned is still around, TV Guide.
Well, you ever pay for your groceries and they still have magazines up there? I imagine that's where they sell TV Guide.
I would imagine they're not selling too many right now. You would think. Like you've got to be a real collector to be still buying TV guides at this point. Like what are you not getting that's on your guide on your TV?
I feel like the people that buy TV Guide are probably the same people that are still ordering WWE pay-per-views through traditional pay-per-view.
Probably a crossover there of people that are buying pay-per-views that also want to read the cover story on The Miz hosting Cannonball.
Makes total sense.
The new water competition series that premieres on the USA Network.
I'll tell you what I did this weekend. I got into Ultimate Beastmaster, starring CM Punk and Stu Bennett and Anderson Silva as hosts. Did you remember this?
I do remember this. Yeah. It's on Netflix, right?
Yeah, it's basically what is it, America Ninja Warrior, but more international. And they have panels basically representing every country. And so Punk, of course, is one of the hosts for the American side. You have Stu Bennett representing the UK side, and your favorite, John Anderson Silva, representing Brazil. And they just basically commentate on all the teams. And it's super athletes doing these obstacle courses. And I found it highly addictive. So that's what I got into. No water cannons, but
so is Punk the host, and what do Silva and Bennett do? Are they judges?
They're all hosts, but in their own country. So I imagine UK Netflix probably has their own version with Stu Bennett as sort of the lead with the other co-host. I think every country gets its own versioning, but they do interact with one another. So often if it's an American going up against a Brazilian, they'll tease each other. They'll walk into each other's booth, and then you'll see subtitles and everything. It's mindless, silly fun.
I'm watching this new show called Upload on Amazon Prime.
I've heard good things. I actually tried the first episode. Yeah.
It's weird. It's like a weird science fiction comedy. But it's okay. It's the idea, the premise, it's in 2033, and when you die, you have this ability to get uploaded instead of actually dying. So that's kind of the premise. And the main character is sent to be uploaded by his girlfriend. And it's this, I'm not going to say drama, but the mystery is whether he was murdered or not in his self-operating car.
Man, that would suck. If you got killed and then uploaded, can you go back?
Not really, no. There's a portal, but people don't make it through the portal. So you're pretty much stuck there.
So then, you can at least witness your trial, your own trial.
No, you get to attend your funeral. You even get to speak at your funeral.
Wow. Amazing. Interesting. Okay, well, morbid, but...
I'm actually surprised that's not more of a thing of, specific to older folks that, know that the time is coming, that they don't prepare a video speech for their own funeral. You never hear about that, but it seems like that is a trend that could sweep the funeral scene.
Well, Ennio Morricone, the Italian composer, actually wrote his own obituary. Like he wrote a thing, like he died like this weekend, and he wrote. So people do that.
How would you feel about doing that? Like, I kind of feel like I would feel very self-conscious about writing my own obituary. I would prefer just somebody else do it, but I mean, to each his own. I mean, who knows yourself better than you?
I guess it was more of like a goodbye message type of thing.
I understand it.
I don't think I would really care, honestly. Like I'd be like I don't know. I record
like
it.
Tony Stark had it down, like where he left the video message at the end.
Yeah.
A hologram. That's the way to say goodbye.
Well, hopefully by the time you have to think about that, we'll have fully functioning holograms.
I'm watching this show. It's like this is stuff that does not seem out of the realm of possibility in my lifetime. Maybe not like uploading people before death, but like when I'm about to like say sayonara, I could certainly imagine being on the cusp of this technology.
Well, then I'll be able to podcast forever, won't I? Well, podcast like for eternity.
Oh, this connection we're on right now would certainly work if I was uploaded.
So you can communicate that way, right? Like you could just basically text the consciousnesses.
Oh yeah, they're constantly on the phone with each other. Like you have a direct line to your personal angel, and you can contact like people on Earth. The Wi-Fi is fantastic in this upload territory.
And is there like a monthly fee?
It's all, I think the girlfriend, it's like they pay for it. So you're kind of on their dime. They control you, basically.
Oh, God. How much is it?
They didn't get into figures, but one of the angels is trying to get a loan because her father, she wants to upload him. So she had to get a loan for it.
Well, listen, like it just gets really expensive. I mean, if you have a really big family and as the generations progress, I mean, shit, it's like, am I going to have to pay for my great grand aunt, at some point?
Yeah. I mean, do they want to be saved? Do they want to be uploaded?
I'm sure they would. Why not? All right. Raw.
Cannonball. It debuts, I think, Thursday. With the guy who doesn't appear on the USA Network, The Miz. The Viking Raiders are in the back with a bowling ball. They go crazy about Edge and Christian. They were their heroes growing up. Big Show doesn't have time for any of this shit and chops each of them. And then Eric says, our Viking ways may be strange to you, but tonight when we get in the ring, the raid is on. And Big Show says, good, followed by a lot of grunting from all three men.
Yeah, so they now have like the Viking Raiders. I mean, I guess they've always had this, but I never really noticed it till now. But they script them as if they're all like Thor, like as if they talk like Thor, but like, like Thor 1 Thor, not Thor 3 Thor. So, I mean, it's getting them on TV. Oh, congratulations to Eric. You did mention that, yes.
Eric
Wonderful
and
news.
Sarah, the former Sarah Logan, are having a baby. So congratulations to the two of them. The Kevin Owens Show is back. Owens is out. He tosses the chairs out and introduces his guest, a big piece of trash, Seth Rollins, who comes out with Murphy. And they talk about Owens' fractured ankle from WrestleMania, and they're going back and forth. Owens mentions how when you have a match with someone at WrestleMania, you share a bond with them. So he presents Rollins with a KO Mania 4 t-shirt that he wore when he beat him. Rollins then lays out the challenge to Rey Mysterio for Extreme Rules because now Rey has been cleared. And he suggests that Owens join the fight with Rollins and Murphy so that he can find a purpose in his fighting and fight the greater good. This prompts Rey and Dominic to come out, and Rey accepts the match at Extreme Rules, and they mention that Aleister Black is hurt, and maybe they're going to attack Dominic's eye. So Owens turns down Rollins' offer to fight alongside him, but instead he will team with Rey tonight, and Owens suggests that the winning team gets to pick the stipulations at Extreme Rules. Rollins agrees to this, and Murphy then jumps Owens, and we get an impromptu tag team match.
That's right. Yep. Yeah, it was all fine.
This was pretty much verbatim Brody Lee trying to sign up Colt Cabana with Kevin Owens as Colt Cabana. Only Owens turned him down.
So, was it verbatim? I mean, it was just a guy trying to recruit somebody else.
Well, made me think of it. Seemed very similar paths. I guess we don't have the losing streak with Owens, so there's that difference.
Okay.
SmackDown promo. We have the tag title match with New Day against Nakamura and Cesaro, and Jeff Hardy will be on Miz TV to react to the toast from last week.
I think Jeff Hardy would love to do that Cannonball show. It seems like it's right up his alley.
He should definitely be hosting Cannonball.
Sure.
Rollins and Murphy against Mysterio and Kevin Owens. This featured Rey constantly trying to go for a 619. They walk up to Dominic, Rollins and Murphy, and Rollins dares Dominic to hit him because in doing so would DQ his father, and then Rollins could choose the stipulation. Actually, a brilliant tactic, I thought, on his part. And then Rollins gouges Dominic's eye. And afterwards, they're cutting to Dominic, who was selling this eye gouge like he had gotten dust in his eyes and was just like rubbing his eyes with his shirt, and it looked like more of a nuisance than a debilitating injury that he had sustained.
I mean, have you had dust in your eye?
It's terrible. I understand.
You ever had an eyelash in your eye?
I've never had someone walk up to me and gouge me in the eye. I can't say I can compensate or understand that kind of pain, but I can certainly understand getting something in your eye.
With all that's going on in the world right now, I think sticking your finger in somebody else's eye is one of the most most aggressive, terrible tactics I think anybody can commit.
We should no. I saw all masks in the crowd, so it seemed like the enforcement policy likely took form on Friday because it seemed. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I didn't see anyone without masks in the crowd.
I wasn't really looking for it, but I also didn't notice anybody without.
Owens then lands a super kick on Rollins using the injured ankle of his to tag Rey. Rey fires up. There's a 619 attempt, but Rollins rolls out, grabs Dominic, and he threatens to finish him when Aleister Black walks out. Dominic nails Murphy's eye and puts his thumb in the eye. Just disgusting now that Way has laid out this scenario. So Murphy is completely blinded by this thumb to the eye. Rey hits him with the 619 and the frog splash, pins Murphy, so that means Rey gets to pick the match stipulation. And he tells Rollins, I have the perfect stipulation. Are you ready for this, Way? The perfect stipulation. Eye for an eye. I am going to pull your eye out with my bare hands. And we have the solemn response from the announcers as Joe says, this may indeed be a horror show. And then to one up him, Tom Phillips says, that stipulation is definitely extreme. So we are going to get the promise of a man ripping out another man's eye. Why doesn't he go all the way and say, I'm going to eat it?
That's for SummerSlam. The feast.
Maybe Rey is going to be hosting USA Network's revamping of Fear Factor.
Eating eyeballs, yeah. So for Rey, he'll be putting his other eye on the line.
He has to be, yeah. It's eye for an eye, and he's lost one. It's still covered, so I guess he'll have no sight at all.
All right, yeah. I mean, double or nothing, right? I thought the match was totally fine here. Booking all made sense. Everybody worked hard. Everybody looked good. I'm looking forward to this ridiculous stipulation. Like, I've loved everything they've done so far, teasing, blinding each other on the steel steps. That building a whole match around it, I think will make for really fun tension, like in the way that I guess like, you know, casket matches have in the past, or like Royal Rumbles have in the past, except, you know, big spot is like teasing constantly of driving your opponent's head into these steel steps. I think it'll be fun. And I think it'll be fun to see a man get his eye pulled out. I hope they go all the way. I know they don't, you know, they already have a cinematic match for this show, but this is going to be a tape match. Give me some props, okay? Prop department, makeup, effects. Create that fake eyeball. I want to see somebody dig their fingers into somebody's skull and pluck a nice, juicy, slimy eyeball out.
I think Vince McMahon would have to characterize this as his greatest stipulation ever.
Well, AEW just did it, didn't they?
That's true. Yeah,
we'll
whatever this is going to be. Like,
I mean,
they are, like, these pay-per-views are being sold on the, like, you have to tune in to see what the fuck they're going to do. Like, that's kind of like what the promotional strategy is. And that's what's going to make this, like, what the hell are they going to do in this thing? Like, it's totally ridiculous, but maybe that's the appetite people have. They want ridiculous right now, and these two are going to provide it.
Yeah, sign me up.
Charlie is backstage with MVP and Lashley, and Apollo Crews. Oh yeah, Apollo Crews was not. We did not list him off this week, and it seems like they're going to just. They've announced him for Extreme Rules. Sorry, the horror show at Extreme Rules, but looks like he missed these tapings, and they're just going to explain it by the full Nelson that he was attacked with.
Sure. Yeah. Again, who knows?
They come out to the ring, and this is where they announce Crews and MVP for the pay-per-view. And no one is invincible to Lashley's full Nelson. MVP doesn't feel guilty about Crews being hurt because he turned down his mentorship, and they unveil the new United States title. And MVP crowns himself the new champion because he beat Crews in the non-title match last week. So he puts the title on, and then they're interrupted by Ricochet and Cedric Alexander. Crews is going to be back soon, Ricochet says, and they are here to make sure the Hurt Business goes XFL, Chapter 11. And then they proceeded to attack him. Would have been a way better line if they said XFL instead of Chapter 11. But I thought, listen, I've always been harsh on Ricochet's promos. I thought he was pretty good here.
Yeah, I think he's been absolutely fine. I mean, I think for him, part of the issue is just having to deal with these scripted, very like stiff types of performances. And some people just aren't really very suited for that type of thing. I think he's been okay. Like he's, you know, been out of the spotlight for a bit. And I feel in a less kind of like high pressure situation like this in a tag team, I thought it was totally fine. What did you think of the new belt?
It was fine. It was when you saw the photos online, I thought it looked better than it did when they revealed it on camera. Like it looked like it was just like gold and black, which really doesn't fit the theme of the US belt. But when you see the actual photos, I mean, it's fine.
I think it's okay. You know, I mean, I do feel like a makeover for that belt it has been long overdue. That thing's been around for like.
That's been the design
like
since
years.
WWE adopted it. Yeah, it's been a long time they've had that singular design.
I don't love it. You know, I think the IC title is way better than this one. But yeah, I guess it's an improvement over the last one. I mean, whatever. We'll get used to it.
Bobby Lashley and MVP took on Ricochet and Cedric Alexander. They double-teamed Lashley, only got him down to a knee, but then they took over, got the heat on Ricochet. Lashley hit him with this big flatliner, and then MVP's trying to come in to get the pinfall, but kicks out, and then Alexander's in. Lashley does the blind tag, nails him off the apron to the floor, and Lashley spears Cedric Alexander, pinning him in 652, and MVP leaves with the U.S. title. So it's like Lashley does all the work, MVP is the champion, and kind of a weird buildup here for the U.S. title program, but they're going, you know, they're putting off Lashley. Maybe they're saving him for another month.
I would imagine. Yeah. I mean, I think this will just be, you know, a somewhat important TV match, or sorry, pay-per-view match for Apollo, getting a win over MVP, and then maybe he could move on to Lashley after that. I thought this was a really good little TV match. I really continue to enjoy Lashley's new aggression in ring. Even as the man is going through a divorce, you know, he's still really performing at his best. So I think that should be complimented. I thought it was really impressive that MVP was able to do all he did in a whole suit, man. Like,
yeah, he wrestled the whole match in a suit. Yeah.
Oh my God. I'd be nervous about my pants ripping at the crotch. So high quality suit. So let's compliment the suit maker as well.
You almost wonder that, like last week, he was on the last show, like he was just in his normal gear. Like you almost wonder if it was just like impromptu that they needed him for this match, and for some reason he didn't have his gear, because there was no story reason for him not to have his gear on.
I don't know. I have no idea. You would figure he would have his gear out at all times.
That's the rule. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, you would think so. Anyway, or maybe they're just trying something different with him. I don't know.
Yeah. Did you notice how like they all have nicknames now?
No, I didn't. So, what are they?
So MVP is P. They call him P. A P. They call him P.
Yeah.
And like I'm pretty sure I heard MVP call Bobby Lashley Roberto.
Roberto. Okay.
Roberto. So we've got P, we've got Roberto, and you know Richard O'Shea, of course, we know already.
And then we got the other one,
Seti. Yeah, that's how Ricochet referred to Cedric, as Seti. So we've got Seti, Richard, P, and Roberto.
Pretty impressive that they could get like, hey, MVP, we've got to shorten that. Like that's quite the extreme. It's like, okay, pick our favorite letter.
Come on, it's cool to just have, you know, it's efficient. Efficiency is cool.
Roberto Lashley and Seti.
I love it. Look at the personality. Look at the growth these guys have all had.
Andrade and Garza were backstage with Vega. Andrade doesn't want to talk to Garza. Thankfully, Ric Flair is there and says that tonight it's a must-do mission, which apparently is what Ric Flair is on every week when it comes to Raw tapings. He says if you don't get along with Orton tonight, then you're going to have to answer to him, and don't screw anything up. Orton walks in to explain to them, don't screw up anything with Big Show for me. I promise you that Randy Orton could have done all of this dialogue with the others, but hey, Ric Flair's there. He's doing these shows. I mean, there's only so much you can say, and I agree with you. I'm sure that this guy is hardly averse to doing all of these shows, but it's insane. Like just how it's almost like they're finding ways to put him into the show because there's not really a role for him. He didn't even come out for the match.
Yeah, I don't know.
This was it. This was all he did on this whole show this week, was one backstage segment that tonight is a must-do mission.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe he just wants to. Maybe he's just bored.
Maybe he loves these COVID tests. Maybe they're fun.
Could be. I don't know. I'm not sure. You also had here, like, Orton really draw the association between the three of them, that they're all third generation wrestlers. And Orton also threatening to, you know, beat the shit out of those other two. And I usually hate that sort of thing when like a bigger heel like out alphas the lesser heels. Like Triple H used to always do this shit, and now you would hate it because it would make like the lower heels look so lame. But man, Orton is so entertaining, and his performance is so good when he's talking down to anybody. Like I'm almost just like cool with it. Yeah, like he's so fun to watch.
I will tell you who was very fun to watch in this next segment. It was the Kabuki Warriors. After saying, Asuka said after she beats Bayley, they are challenging them to the tag titles next week. And then Asuka, in her great delivery, she just yells out Kabuki warriors. Like, just, that's who we are. And then Kairi starts playing their theme on the recorder. This is one of those scenes that needs to be watched and not recapped by me. It was awesome. I love this.
It was great. Yeah, they've really kind of like got their promo style down to a science where they just say a bunch of stuff in Japanese that I'm sure is incredibly interesting, but none of us will really know. And then they say the actual thing that they're there for. And then in this case, it was the challenge for the belts. And what I was really impressed by was Kairi on that recorder. She's clearly been practicing. She did the whole theme here.
She was great. I mean, this takes a lot of skill that she has invested.
We know how she's been spending her quarantine time. She's like picked up an instrument. Check it out.
The Big Show and the Viking Raiders versus Orton, Andrade, and Angel Garza. Orton won't start the match with Big Show. So Big Show is just in there with Andrade. They're attacking them. The Viking Raiders get scoop slammed on top of him. Garza starts screaming at Andrade, and Orton gets pissed. He tells Garza, come over here. And he just lays into Garza. He shoves him against the glass. Then he grabs him by the throat and says, if you screw up, I'll put your ass in the dirt. And he didn't even win a match to pick this stipulation. He's just going to put his ass in the dirt. I'm going to kill you just because, not even build it up on pay-per-view.
Yeah, like I said, usually when like a heel just like, man, does this to another heel, I usually cringe. I usually hate it, man. But Orton was so entertaining here. Like, to me, this is like he's definitely, of course, like one of the best actors, I would say, in the company right now. But this is something I could have definitely seen like on the level of what you would see in a drama.
I listened to Edge was being interviewed on ESPN, and Peter Rosenberg was asking him about, is Randy Orton in like a different space now that you've been working with him? Like, he just seems to be in a great spot. I mean, recently he's even tweeting about Black Lives Matter. Like, it just seems like this is a totally different guy now. It's like the whole thing is like, man, Randy Orton seems a lot less shitty now. Is this true?
Oh, God. And what was the answer?
Edge was like, I think it's just... Edge gave like a very diplomatic answer about like, he's older now. And also he realizes he has a voice to speak about social issues that a lot of times people probably think, do we really need to hear from wrestlers about social issues? And maybe we do have a platform to talk about this. Like, Edge can take any question and he's very good with it. But it was just like, what's gotten into this guy? He's talking about like equality. So anyway, the match continues. Big Show calls for the choke slam. Orton comes from behind. He can't hit the RKO. Andrade then counters the choke slam to a sleeper and gets flipped off the back. Eric comes in. The others are fighting. The Viking Experience gets stopped, and Ivar is sent to the floor. Randy hits the RKO, pinning Eric, and they win. And Orton kind of goes up the ramp with Andrade, Garza, and Vega, and kind of I at least took it like this visual, like teasing like an alliance here with these four.
That's how I took it too. A group of like third generation guys, led by Ric Flair, I guess, and Zelina. So,
what a weird faction! Like just the different parts.
Well,
Flair and Andrade. There's the natural. I mean, there's
that is true. Yeah, I mean, their numbers aren't exactly high right now for them to pick from, and it seems like this is a matter of convenience as well. Really, I think to flesh out Randy Orton by having a stable around him, at least for the time being, I guess is a decent move. It's fine. I don't see it lasting, beyond perhaps this pay-per-view or even SummerSlam. But for the time being, it's totally fine. I think they're doing the best they can to hotshot Big Show up into this main event level babyface status. They're keeping his status, like his presence, very strong. They're making him look good in ring by highlighting his strengths in a match like this. And I really think it helps how much of a command Show now has of his own acting ability at this stage of his career. Physically, I think he actually is keeping up really well. But to me, like the real standout of his performances now is things like facial expression and just how he like carries himself.
Yeah, I wonder how much you can do with him in a one-on-one match, which, I mean, they still haven't announced with him and Orton. I mean, that seems to be the direction of all of this. But I think that's, the guy has had a lot of injuries that he's gone through, and I think they've been smart to kind of put him in these six-mans.
And his is a style that I think you can really work around, and like he's mobile enough to be able to, wrestle his style.
Yeah, you just have to come up with a stipulation now between Orton and Big Show. I mean, you can't just do a match at the horror show.
What body part?
Maybe they have it on top of Cobo Hall, the site of Big Show's plunge 25 years ago. All ideas that are on the table. The Iconics are in the back. They're making fun of Ruby Riott. They joke about Liv not returning her phone calls. Really Drew McIntyre of her. And she's a loser. Ruby appears from behind and calls them dumbasses. And tonight, it won't be iconic. It will be tragic. They walk by MVP and Cedric Alexander.
I think she said that hoping that like it would rhyme.
Iconic and tragic?
It does. Yeah.
Well, they both end with the same letters. It was an attempt. Yeah, they got very Aaron Sorkin-ish here, where we walked by and just dropped in on the conversation between MVP and Cedric Alexander. Everyone just goes, they finish their matches, and then they hang out by this empty ring in the warehouse.
Well, that would be quite the feat if they could do the whole episode.
I'd be like, I'm done my match. I'm getting the hell out of here. I'm not sticking around just to chat around this ring.
Mm-hmm.
This is like the Saved by the Bell at the Max after. MVP is trying to recruit Cedric Alexander and says, why are you holding yourself back by being Ricochet's sidekick? And Cedric says, I get what you're trying to do. Divide and conquer. So MVP digs in deep and says, well, let me remind you that it's Ricochet that has a new WWE 365 special on the network, and you do not. And Cedric does not have a comeback to this. And then MVP says, we're in the hurt business. You're in the catering business, because that's where you're going to be watching the stars. So bon appetit. I mean, dude, this guy gets some fucking lines in every week. And it's just like these mic drops at the end of it. Like the bon appetit. I was like, the great line at the end of this.
It really is amazing, like how integral he's becoming, to so many guys on this roster, like Lashley, Apollo, and now it looks like Cedric and Ricochet as well. They're all involved in stories that I think really involve MVP, and none of it would really be possible without an antagonist who can talk like him. So I think it's honestly some of the best things that's been there for those four guys. So I look forward to seeing more.
Orton is with Flair. This was the pivotal segment. This is why I was flown to Florida. Flair was bragging about another win when R-Truth runs and bumps into Orton. And then R-Truth stares at Ric Flair and thinks that he is Akira Tozawa in disguise. So then R-Truth leaves. Tozawa runs up with the ninjas. I never thought I would see a scene involving Randy Orton with the ninjas, but here we are. And Orton then pointed in the wrong direction, sending Tozawa and the ninjas away. I don't know what this segment was meant to accomplish. It just existed.
Yeah. I mean, the announcers did ask why Orton was helping Truth. So I'm guessing we'll get some sort of reveal in the future.
I can't wait for that reveal. I cannot wait for it.
Yeah, coming up next week.
Is R-Truth a third generation performer? He is not.
Not that I know of. Yeah, but man, whatever. The ninja thing was so bad, especially this week, where like Tozawa comes in all scared of Orton. Of course, he's a subordinate to Orton, and they all bow as they leave.
And Orton bowed as they left. Did you catch that? God. He bowed.
Of course I caught it. Of course. It was just really sad.
Ruby Riott and Billie Kay. This one went 241. Ruby Riott stomped Peyton Royce's hand on the apron, and then she scared her off the apron, but this allowed Billie Kay to nail her in the throat and hit her finish, which is some kind of sit-out dominator kind of finish.
The BK bomb.
Yeah, you're right. We had seen this once before. She doesn't win all that often, so I forgot about this. The BK bomb, and she won in 241.
So both Billy and Peyton have beaten Ruby in singles matches in the past 2 weeks. And man, like insult to injury here, Ruby's weave fell out and like they're waving the weave like as they're walking up the ramp. Man, terrible. So I definitely sense they're telling a longer story here, setting up the Liv Morgan return and the reunion of the Riot Squad. So
crowd's gonna go nuts at that reunion.
Well, it's something for them.
I seriously believe, based on that backstage segment where they were constantly calling her a loser, I really feel that's what they're going to name those two together, the Losers.
That particular name?
Like they used it a lot last week, and then they continued it this week. That I almost think that it's going to be like this ironic name that they take on, the Losers. I
mean, the clear thing that they're trying to do here is like, you know, the Mean Girls versus the Outcasts, right? Like it is a like every high school movie trope. And I don't know what high school you would go to where like Liv Morgan would be perceived as an outcast, but all right.
Charlie's with Bayley and Banks. Just a million interview segments on this show. Charlie and Sarah Schreiber were the busiest people on this show. Banks accepts the tag title challenge for next week. Bayley's annoyed at this. Banks explains why, so she's fine with it. Nikki Cross is out for commentary. It's our main event, and it is 10:30 p.m. So this was going to be the whole last half hour, this match.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Bayley was in control early on. Nikki Cross is separated by security, and they haul Nikki Cross away. Yes. But she would return later. We went through one commercial break. We went through two commercial breaks. Picked up here, Asuka went for a spinning back fist. And either this was the greatest worked spinning back fist I have ever seen in a pro wrestling context, or she smoked Bayley like a cannon. And I'm going to lead towards the latter. The replay of this, I thought Bayley's head was going to come off.
It looked pretty good. And yeah, I'm sure it felt pretty good too.
She wasn't busted up or anything, but it looked like she might have just caught it right at the side of the head or something here. Asuka proceeded to hit a missile drop kick. We were getting into some near falls here. Banks then nails her from the apron, and the Bayley to belly was identified as the Saito suplex.
Well, it was really facing like the back. It wasn't really to the belly.
Well, Banks gets a bottle of water and passes it to Bayley, and Bayley then splashes the water onto Asuka, and Kairi Sane's across the ring just like watching this all. Cross then appears behind the plexiglass and bangs on the glass so much that this distracts Bayley like she's seen a ghost. So the Asuka lock is applied. Bayley tries to fight out by rolling on top, goes back to the Asuka lock. When Kairi comes in, spears Sasha to stop the DQ from occurring, and then Asuka hooks Bayley's legs and pins her and gets the victory. So you did get the finish here. I thought they might go the DQ route, which would have been infuriating after this length of time, but you did get a finish.
Yeah, so they already announced the tag title match, right?
For next week, yes.
Yes. So, I mean, I think you had to make the challengers look strong in 1 week here. Good match, incredible performances from both women. Asuka looked great. And I think as a character, Bayley has become strong enough to be able to carry 30 minutes of a TV match like this. I'll say for me personally, at the end of like a 3-hour Raw with really nothing at stake in this match, I kind of felt like it went too long. I understand it because it's like, champion versus champion. You kind of want to make it grand. You want to make, like you want to have these two on TV for most of your show. I understand. But it did get to the point where I was feeling like every near fall was almost like something that was met with disappointment rather than excitement. And I think that's more to do with my own energy level by the end of this show.
Yeah, I think it's tough when there's no other segments announced and it's 30 minutes of television time and you're going to get the commercial breaks and they worked very hard and I thought like it really accelerated in I would say like the last 5 to 6 minutes. It's a very tough spot to be in when you're carrying that much television time. I mean, it's a half hour. It's a long time in this setting with the commercial interruptions and
well, like the taped, I'm sure, they went a little bit less. Like they're not wrestling through commercial breaks at these tapings, but still, it was very long. You saw it on their faces, like the amount of sweat that was pouring down both of them. So they both worked really hard.
Maybe that's what Jorge Masvidal is going to have to do to cut some weight in Abu Dhabi. It's going to be super hot there, and maybe he's got to work through a couple segment matches.
Yeah, perhaps. So Kyrie's saying, it seems like they're really going through all of these like matches with her right now. Like tonight we got big match with her and Sasha, even though it ended in DQ. But next week we're kind of getting like big tag tag title match between the Kabuki Warriors and Sasha and Bayley. I mean,
yeah. Yeah, and I think that with Kyrie, it's probably I don't know what the timetable is, but they're probably starting to figure out when, as long as they have her, use her, and then she probably gets written off whenever that time is.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about the show overall? I mean, what really jumped out at you?
I really like the Heath Slater stuff at the beginning. I thought that was really strong and I think unique, and I would even say worth watching for somebody who's a bit more of a lapsed Raw fan. Beyond that, a lot of it was really like, much of the same old. I think there was some good wrestling on the show. I would recommend the main event for people who maybe aren't watching the rest of the show and just want to tune into like a pretty hefty 20+ minute match between Bayley and Asuka. I thought they both did really well. The tag title match between Cedric and Ricochet, Seti and Richard and P and Roberto. Pretty solid too. But do you have to watch it? I wouldn't necessarily say so. A lot of these stories are just like, they're good, they're fine, but pretty standard, I would say. But overall, like, not a bad show.
Yeah, just a long show. I think that you can cherry pick. I definitely recommend the Heath Slater promo. I thought was really good, almost too good for what they had planned for him in the next segment. But he delivered a really great promo. I think that they're Banks and Bayley have become kind of the main characters on all the shows at this point. Like compare their role on Tonight's Show versus Drew McIntyre, who. I mean, you almost forgot by the end of the show that Heath Slater stuff took place because it was over and done with within 15 minutes.
Part of it, I think, really has to do with perhaps how entertaining they are as characters versus, Drew's been on TV a whole lot, but I can't really tell you, like, he's been great, I think, as, a performer. Like, he's in ring, he delivers, on the mic, he delivers, but there's really nothing that really pops out about it. Nothing that really, like, feels like I would. Like I crave seeing his next performance, but and that's why I find it so interesting, and why I still consider him pretty untested until we start to get crowds in there to see how crowds organically react to him. Because right now, I think it's just all company pushing him to get to this level. In a segment like tonight, I definitely would have seen the audience turn on him. So. He remains a pretty interesting case that I considered pretty untested. But Banks and Bayley, on the other hand, I feel that real organic, I think, attraction to them. Just as like a fun act to watch. They're amazing in ring and they're killing it really on all three shows.
We talked about for Extreme Rules, that you could certainly make the argument to close the show with Asuka and Sasha Banks. Do you see Rollins and Rey at that same level, or do you still feel that Asuka and Banks would be your best choice to close the show on the pay-per-view?
I think considering the fact that it's for a championship and really, I could definitely see them, considering Rey and Rollins for that main spot. But I would still go with Asuka and Banks. To me, it's the one that I have personally the most interest in. The eye angle definitely adds an extra layer, but it's like more of a kind of novelty type of thing to me. I'm sure the match will be great, but if you have an opportunity to like, have a strong female main event, I would absolutely say take it.
Okay, I want to do one quick game with you, okay? They do the eye for the eye match, and they do some weird prop where an eye is taken out of one of them. You play Tom Phillips and transition to the next match.
Oh my. What a emotional event we just witnessed. Speaking of emotional events, Bray Wyatt has been really up to no good over the past month.
Tom, the eye is rolling on the mat. He's screaming. He's screaming in the ring right now. Do we have medics here? Tom, we can't go on with this show.
Well, a very serious set of circumstances we've just witnessed, and we take it to the back for our colleague, Sarah Schreiber, who's there with the Viking Raiders.
They almost need to bring in Jerry Lawler for that match, because can you imagine all the jokes he would have for the eye match, even though they're trying to present it seriously? Like, yes, oh my God, I don't know if Ray, hindsight is 2020 about this match stipulation he chose.
COVID be damned. Yes, please fly that man in just to commentate that match.
Yeah, there you go. Let's go to the feedback. And tonight's show got a 6.93.
My God, that's really high for
that's on the high end.
Probably for the match. Well, let's see what. Oh, maybe it's Heath Slater. Let's see what people thought.
Well, from Paul in New Jersey, Heath Slater is no joke. One of my favorite performers of the last decade, and I think we just watched him cut the best promo of his career. Dolph, who wouldn't have had Slater job out? Add Slater to the Extreme Rules match. Add instant intrigue to an otherwise bland feud. If the idea was to make me think Io was showing up, but having Sane return, well done. That said, I don't know what's worse, current Seth Rollins or the comedy vacuums that are the Viking Raiders. All is not lost, because all the Iconics do is win, 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 no matter what. Very clever. There you go.
No, I don't get it. What's that?
It's
win, win, no matter what.
Like the
song. Oh, I get it. Oh. All right. We got Matt in Abbotsford, who says, what is the end game with Ruby Riott? I'm pretty sure she was challenging for the women's title before she had shoulder surgery. Is she the new Ricochet? I think they're setting up a reunion with Liv Morgan.
That's where they're going. Yep. Kyle from Warrington. Heath Slater was great. Didn't love the instant squash, but the promo was money. Was this just a really nice gift from WWE to have him advertise himself for future employment? The women's matches were good, especially in the main event. I'm done with Rollins and Ray, so hopefully Randy can retire Ray or something. Fun, easy to watch show overall.
Yeah, Slater, I imagine they probably just found like a really interesting idea. Slater is still technically on contract, and they could use him to, make for a compelling first segment to build up to this Dolph Drew match that God knows absolutely needs anything that they could use. At the same time, I really, like I said, do consider any sort of appearances from these guys as sort of like a, kind of a savior job type of performance. And this is your last chance to impress Vince. If he likes you enough, maybe when this whole thing is over, he'll bring you back. I definitely don't discount that. We get to Aaron from Brampton, who says that opening promo caught me off guard. I was expecting some generic back and forth between Ziggler and Drew, but instead we got an emotional Heath Slater promo. It was a reminder of how great of a performer Heath is. I also liked how Drew beat him quickly. Just because Heath can get intense, that doesn't change how easy it is for most to beat him. The whole thing was done beautifully. Question for you guys, now that we've seen guys like Slater return and Drake Maverick keep his job, which recently released wrestlers could you see making a return to WWE sooner than later?
I think this is probably it. Of the ones like those 90-day no competes are almost up. So, I mean, a lot of it was like, these are performers that are still technically under deals. I would also say like of the crop that have, well, at least these two, I suppose, that have returned. I mean, they, from what we know, have never publicly spoke up against the company the way a lot of the released talent have. So I don't really see Leo Rush coming back. I don't really see Rusev even being Rusev, unless they were really concerned about him going to the competition. Otherwise, I don't really see him just making a return like this. Like I said, unless things change. I guess anything can happen. Andrew from Cape Breton. Heath Slater looked good tonight and was definitely the highlight. The Dolph Ziggler match is so dead, but if they just canceled that and changed it to Drew versus Heath, I think you would get a better match, even with Heath's recent history of being a comedy jobber. I guess it was also a good comparison and contrast to other promos and segments like with Ricochet, the Viking Raiders, or Ruby Riott. I've hated scripted promos for a while, but if there is something real within that scripted promo, I think it's easier to handle. Sonya Deville, for example, has taken some potentially real issues and just brought them into this world without being overlooked. My biggest issue with WWE is it's too fake. Fake is the big buzzword with wrestling. But while I know Heath Slater was given direction and the outcome of his match and segment was predetermined, there was something real coming from him. There are definitely people in WWE who are good in their roles and feel more real, but a lot of WWE scripted promos make things worse. 6 out of 10 show.
So they just need to lay everybody off and then bring them back in for segments.
Well, you'll have a lot of passion behind a promo under those circumstances. And I think that there is probably a happy medium where there's some talent that need direction and they need people to help them with their promos. But I think when you can at least channel something that typically is going to come across, that genuineness can be detected very easily, as opposed to we've got our own 5-second pose, Big Show, and when the match begins, the raid is on. Good.
For a lot of these guys, I mean, I'm sure the urgency in knowing that you absolutely have to deliver a great performance will often give them enough pressure to just do their best. And yeah, granted, if you have really bad material, you can only do so much, but I guess I do wonder if the Viking Raiders were in a similar position as Heath Slater was, how great of a promo you would have had from Eric Rowe, sorry. Is that his name? Ray Rowe. But his name is Eric.
Just Eric. He doesn't have a last name. Neither of them have surnames in the Viking universe.
Okay. All right, we go to Nick from Lansing, who says, this was a weird and mixed show for me. In terms of advancing stories and good matches, there's a lot of good things to point at, with Sasha, Bayley, and Asuka Kairi being the high points of the show for me. But as the show went on, I couldn't help but feel weird about the number of people who were suddenly being brought back to TV after news breaking out about more confirmed cases of COVID from the PC. I was surprised to see KO come back, and as much as I love the Heath Slater promo, I hope he's not getting a well-paying job soon. The whole thing had a break glass in case of emergency feel to it. Do you think if more cases keep coming out from the WWE, we'll see some sort of government body step in? Or should we assume the combination of Florida and wrestling will be enough for people to not take it seriously in the mainstream?
I think what you've seen, the measures that they've put in, I think that's all you're going to expect. I mean, they're at this point, I don't see any kind of intervention.
No, I don't either.
Not in Florida. Will from Toronto. I had no idea Slater was going to appear, so that was a fun surprise. Amazing promo. Knew he would be a quick jobber to Drew, but it was nice regardless. The new United States title is awful. Am I in the minority here?
We don't know. Oh, Anthony says, I 100% agree with you. It's going to be one of those things we see it enough times, we'll get used to it.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just a title design to me. I didn't really leave with any strong feelings of it one way or the other. Okay, at this point, let us go to Phil. Phil Chertok is going to be on the site later this week with myself with lots of UFC 251 coverage. So here is Mr. Chertok explaining what we have planned this week. Before we wrap up the show, we are joined by post-wrestling royalty, Phil Chertok, the man, the master of ceremonies himself. Mr. Chertok, how are you on this Monday night?
I'm doing tremendous, John, this late on a Monday evening when it is dark outside and not bright at all.
Thank you for the virtual wink to all of the audience members who are all of faith that you stayed up to this super late hour to join us just for the sake of honoring the time system that is out there. But we have got UFC 251 coming up this Saturday night, a brand new main event as Gilbert Burns is out Jorge Masvidal is in. And before we talk about our post show this weekend, there's no disputing that the UFC lucked into an accidental upgrade of significant proportions.
Yeah, I mean, they upgraded the event in a couple of ways, obviously getting a much bigger name for the main event. And, unfortunately, the most likely had to pay him quite a bit more than they probably were initially willing to. But the fact that it's also a late replacement sort of adds to the excitement around the event. And so I think that what was already an eagerly anticipated event just got even more eagerly anticipated.
Well, I know you believe this is going to be, you thought already this was going to be an enormous card. I think that this certainly grows this interest level that much more. So last month for UFC 250, we went live right after the show. So for those that are saying, you know what, Jorge Masvidal, that is going to be my introduction to post wrestling's UFC coverage coming up on Saturday night. Why don't you instruct the listeners on what we have planned for Saturday night? You've got a very busy night ahead, and I just get to check in for the post show.
That's right. Much like the last UFC pay-per-view, which was a big event, that was the first UFC pay-per-view during this pandemic period. We are going to be going live with a UFC viewing party during the pay-per-view portion of the evening. It's going to be myself and longtime post MMA contributor Eric Marcotte. We're going to be doing a watch-along with the pay-per-view. So we'll be doing commentary during the fights. So if you're unable to watch the pay-per-view, you can join us. Or if you are watching the pay-per-view, it's just sort of like a cool atmosphere that we'll be engaged in. And that will be happening on the YouTube stream, the post-wrestling YouTube stream, so people can watch there. And they can chat in the YouTube chat. But we're also going to have, as always, our Discord chat as well. And users can join Discord now. And then following the watch along, as you've already mentioned, we are going to go live, me and you, with the post show, the UFC post show. And for the first time ever, we are going to be taking calls on the post show. And that is going to be happening exclusively via Discord. So we've got a channel set up in Discord. So what you're going to do is you're going to join that channel. And during the call portion of the show, we'll put you on the air.
So we will direct everyone to youtube.com/postwrestling. Best to just subscribe to the channel, and then you'll have your reminders and you're not going to miss any of this. And the Discord channel, easiest place to access that, just go to postwrestling.com and click on the button that conveniently reads Discord. So that is your setup for Saturday night. And you do not have to be a member of the cafe. It's all free to access all of this. And it's live. The most favorite word in the broadcast industry, Phil.
Yeah, I mean, it's exciting. It gives you those butterflies in your stomach. And, the fighters are going to do, I think, right?
Well, Phil is going to be back as well later this week. On Thursday, we're going to have a special UFC 251 preview show, which God knows what this card is going to look like, Phil, by the time Thursday rolls around.
It's you don't even want to speculate at this point because it seems like our imaginations aren't creative enough to come up with these potential scenarios.
Well, aside from Gilbert Burns out, Jorge Masvidal in, everything else is intact for this card on Saturday. So Phil will be back Thursday, and I'm looking forward to this on Saturday. I think this is going to be a lot of fun with the live watch along that starts at 10 o'clock Eastern when the pay-per-view begins, youtube.com/postwrestling. And then the post show, will be starting momentarily after the main event, where we will either be talking about, Kamaru Usman with another title defense, or Jorge Masvidal, baptizing Kamaru Usman in Abu Dhabi and hoisting the welterweight championship. What a story that would be.
Definitely. I mean, the story of the resurrection of Street Jesus has been amazing so far. And UFC title win after being, the person with the most fights before a title opportunity would be a very poetic line in that story.
All right. Well, Phil has instructed me that he's a little behind tonight, so he is back to go complete Raw. He is currently on hour 1 of 3. So I'll let you get back to that, Phil, and I look forward to chatting with you more in depth on Thursday.
Definitely. I look forward to it.
So there you go. UFC 251 preview show on Thursday, and then Saturday night, live watch along with Phil and Eric Marcotte. It's so hard to transition to that.
You Marcotte yourself before you made that mistake.
Oh, very nice. So you can tune in on the YouTube channel, youtube.com/postwrestling, 10 p.m. Eastern time. So Eric and Phil will be watching the pay-per-view, and you can also interact through the Discord channel, which you can log into through postwrestling.com.
Very exciting.
So I'm looking forward to that. That is coming up on Saturday. And Tuesday night, we're back for our Rewind Away number 65, covering Lonesome Dove. So, boy, we are going to be recapping an episode called Day of the Dead. So that is episode 10 from season 2. The only episode wrestling fans have probably tracked down of Lonesome Dove.
I believe it might be on YouTube. If you care, and I don't really know how many people care to do this one, but we will be talking about it in its entirety. As will Jay Hunter.
Yes, Jay Hunter might be the star of the show, so you'll want to tune into that on Tuesday, and we will get through Lonesome Dove and figure out what the hell was going on in this show.
Hey, a few other things. John and I are going to be returning to the Toronto Mike podcast tomorrow, aren't we?
That's true. Yes, that show will be up. Actually, I think you can even watch it live. We're going to be on Tuesday at noon, and then they'll have the show up later that day. So I had a great time doing that show last year. So they invited us back. So we're going to be doing that Tuesday at noon. Anything else?
Yeah, it'll just be a bit of a general chat about everything that's going on. I'm sure catching up on our lives during the pandemic. It'll be a fun conversation.
Yeah.
As well, one other plug. This just came out.
Oh.
Episode 49 of the PWT cast features the one and only W.H. Park talking with our friends Scrump and Stank, and maybe even a cameo from a certain man from New Jersey. So you can listen to that right now at PWT cast.
Yes, go check that out, and right off the top, get WH's impression of North American wrestling fans versus Japanese wrestling fans.
Oh, I love it. Oh, my God.
Just Mr. Japan, W.H. Park, the best. So there you go. Check out a lot of great shows to find out there in the world. So go listen to all of them and then make your way back here. So we'll speak with you Tuesday night after we chat about Lonesome Dove, and then Wednesday following Dynamite. So quite a contrast.
Well, you don't know. I mean, there's Cowboys on Dynamite.
That's true. Hangman Page could
some
maybe
real cowboy shit. That's Bret Hart is the original cowboy shit.
Yeah, maybe we need a storyline where Hangman Page has a special elixir and all of AEW starts to come down sick and some people mysteriously die.
I haven't watched the episode yet.
Oh, well, with that said, goodbye, everyone.